I think the foundations of the US still have tied for first in terms of potential to lead humanity in so many different ways.
Who's it tied with?
I don't know. I guess I'm just saying this in kind of from epistemic humility. I'm
Yeah,
not.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So
But
like first among equals in many ways. I agree with
yeah,
you completely. The experiment that is the United States from the time of its founding is a unique aberration in history in many ways,
yeah,
where it didn't come from a king, it came from a rebellion, and it had these guiding sort of principles that were, while born out of other countries, were really foundationally unique to the United States.
for sure. And there's this people like to when they're pushing a certain narrative about the U.S. being like irredeemably racist or oppressive. I mean,
Compared to what?
I just think, yeah, it really just, it's a lot of it comes from a good place, but a lot of it is really ignorant to what's happening anywhere else in the world,
Yeah.
really.
It's
So
funny. You're like kind of the second. I don't know. I don't really want to call you a refugee exactly, but my last guest, Ace Deliri, he had the same sort of comments. He came from Afghanistan, where he was a refugee, and he went to Canada, and it's very similar thinking along the lines of you.
for sure, and it's not like you as a white guy are asking for sympathy here, but I have a almost like a privilege and a responsibility to talk about America in a certain way. It is taboo for someone like you to talk about it because especially because I can just reference my family's personal history and it's
Yeah,
very hard to
you get
like
to put on the victim card, and you get credibility for it.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that that is a chip that's available to place in such a powerful way. But okay, I don't want to get. I want to get to this in kind of the woke millennial to your current vision sort of section. But let's keep. So you came. Your parents came from China. Your father went to the University of Louisiana. Where
Yeah.
do we go from there?
Yeah, LSU.
LSU.
My parents were in IT. They moved to Illinois at some point shortly after my brother was born, where I was born. And I had a nice suburban life. Didn't really think about America like at all in terms of
Yeah.
just like public service.
What a blessing not to have to think about it.
No, I think people of my not necessarily my generation, millennials, but like the younger millennials that were teenagers when Obama was on the rise. It was just like this fairy tale situation. I think this is like when a lot of institutions were simply not questioned. And
It was great
this,
hope. Obama, I remember when Obama got elected, and I was definitely on the left at that point in time, and had really great hope that this eloquent, beautiful, deep thinker who really this amazing presence, and a black man like, would figure out how to sort this shit out. And then all of a sudden he gets the Nobel Peace Prize, and a few years into the term, he's bombing the shit out of other brown people. And I was just like, what? This is not how this was supposed to go.
like, I think it's not just one of two ways, but for simplicity's sake, you could stay in your illusion that Obama was perfect, the party did what
Yeah.
it could, or you can go down like a pretty cynical route about just the fabric of the country, and that branches out into its own little subcategories. But I think especially when Trump got elected, I went down this really righteous, it felt good, but problematic rabbit hole of hardcore progressive ideology.
Really? So Trump getting elected kind of sparked you to go deeper into the leftist mentality.
Yeah, so it just the narrative was so easy to latch onto that so many of the building blocks of America, maybe its like most core foundation, were again irredeemable. The
What
heroic
was it
thing.
about Trump that you thought, the election of Trump, that made you go down this irredeemable sort of path?
I'm the narrative, while there's definitely some truth to it, of essentially like white. Remember when Van Jones said white lash?
No, I don't remember this one.
Oh, interesting. So like right after the election, he was like, "Yes, this is white lash," and I thought
Oh,
that was
okay. So this is like the white people's revenge for Obama narrative.
exactly. And
Okay.
I fully bought into that. And someone that Asians are like largely ignored or down
Oh no, you're white now, man. You're getting basketed with us.
or downright oppressed in a way, right? College admissions.
Oh yeah, 100%. You've got to be like what, a half a standard deviation better as a Asian guy than a white guy in order to get into the top schools.
For sure. For medical school, you have to have a basically perfect MCAT. Like these kinds of things kind of go unquestioned. And because the prevailing like social culture is one of who can be more awake or woke to the injustice of the current system, you compartmentalize the fact that like the system is not necessarily fair to my people.
Yeah.
But no one's talking about that. It's almost like an inconvenient truth that you just like put to the side. And then let's all talk about these sanctioned injustice narratives.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, for whatever reason, I felt comfortable doing that. And then there was almost, looking back there, I think there's almost like this sense of pride that as someone that was, whose people were being oppressed in a certain way, wasn't focusing
like real oppression in your generation. Yeah.
wasn't focusing on my generation's
Your parents' generation. Yeah.
No, so I'm even saying Asian people have not been treated super in the country. You look at media, like the hyper demasculation of the Asian male,
Sure.
also like way harder to get into good colleges, like we said. I think just people just generally don't see Asian males as leaders in the culture. I think these things are all changing, but there was no room in the culture to talk about these things, at least relative to basically BLM narratives.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Was I outraged when I saw certain cases like Philando Castile? I still think those are absolutely outrageous that even happens once.
And what is this with the Castile?
So it's just one of the many incidents where a black man is just like, a police comes up to the car and then definitely not grabbing for a gun and just gets murdered, right?
Oh, yeah.
By a cop, right? So these things are, I don't think that they're actually very prevalent, but but they're all unacceptable.
They're all unacceptable, but the amount of attention that they get is
Right.
possibly disproportionate to the magnitude of the occurrences.
For sure. And I can speak from experience that there is a massive incentive to inflate just how prevalent something like this is, right? And
Yeah.
what it says about how good or bad, really bad America is. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for, so let me explain to you like how I specifically got involved. So post 2016, I saw a call by this big woke activist to join this kind of resistance Trump
Sure.
type stuff.
It always blows my mind that they call it the resistance when it's like all the mainstream media and corporations all have its back. It blows my mind. But go on. Yeah.
So I mean it's like it's all kind of funny in retrospect. I was accepted among the people that applied, like dozens of people from McKinsey, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google were all in this like private Slack.
You know you're part of the resistance when McKinsey's on your team.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, just like underdogs. But I got put on the social media team because I had done my social media for my own music blog that I had that was pretty successful. And there was like no direction from the leadership, and it was like super hierarchical and weird. And it was structure without leadership. So it was like, it was like the worst of all worlds. Eventually, very quickly that organization fell apart. But I still had access to post on Facebook. And I was so pissed about what I was seeing about Trump and about the Black Lives Matter stuff that I was like, okay, maybe just ask for forgiveness, not permission. And so I just started, and I turned out I was very good at it.
You're a very persuasive man.
I'm actually curious to hear more of your thoughts on that. But I realized that I had a lot of fun. It felt like a game to me of getting people really engaged and riled up. In that year, this page that I helped create and single-handedly ran went from 100,000 to almost 1 million followers.
It's a big deal.
1 billion impressions in 2017.
You've got a business.
I don't know what the main guy was doing. I'll be selective about saying what I think I want to say. But I was lucky to have been working at Google while I was doing this and took $0 from this. This is something I genuinely believed in, which is why I don't feel so bad about what I was doing. But the reason why I stopped doing that was not because of my own like self-awareness. It was because my ex at the time, my girlfriend at the time, was like, yo, you're not fun to be around anymore.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yes. And so
And
she,
why did she say you weren't fun to be around
because
anymore?
I was just scrolling Twitter
Oh.
angrily every day and just talking about how shitty America is.
Yeah, you're
So
this privileged Duke student who is,
working at Google in New York City, angrily, essentially angrily tweeting every day,
yeah,
right?
angry
So,
at the world. Yeah, yeah,
and I just stopped being as fun. So comparison between who I used to be, which was like I had thrown 24 parties and concerts during the time that I met her,
yeah,
like electronic music parties. I had a small stage at a festival once. I became a very different person because of ever since Trump got elected. And it was hard for me to give up posting on this account that I built up, but I realized I was just like wondering, what was this actually doing?
Mhm.
Actually, I did not, I was not, I did not feel confident that what I was doing in terms of the negative psychological effects on people that were consuming the content outweighed. I did not feel like the benefits to society were clearly happening to justify the damage psychologically that the polarizing content was doing to them. And I had a very specific case study within myself of what the content was doing to me.
Yeah. It's funny. I think it was around 2015, 2016 when Trump was getting elected. I had this like really I ran my own Facebook page. That's the limit of what I was doing, but I had a realization that the algorithms were making us fight against each other.
Yeah.
That it was this like anger amplification thing,
Yeah.
and I sort of just got off of Facebook because I was getting into fights with friends and family over stuff, and it was an anger amplification mechanism, and it really I wasn't using it well. Like I was falling much victim to the same sort of thing you were doing at a industrial scale.
Industrial scale, world class outrage creator.
Nice.
Totally.
Okay, so you have this epiphany. I am the greatest like troll anger generator, attention getter there is in this space right now, maybe tied for first in some way. And where did you go with this next?
I just cut it out cold turkey. I was like, this is
Nice.
bad. This is bad for me. This is bad for the country. And I was just like, I don't care what whoever does what with this page. Like, you can do whatever you want to do with it. Ultimately, without being too specific, the person that ultimately owned the page just monetized it
Yeah.
in a way that was like pretty gross. But
Yeah, fuck that guy.
and that also opened my mind to the idea that like, okay, maybe you got to be very suspicious about whether you think that you're a good guy, you're on the good side, or whether there is a good side when it comes to this
Okay.
kind of stuff.
Yeah, let me ask you something. What kind of philosophical mistakes do you think that you were making at that point in time, besides just being making rage for no good reason? Because you mentioned like you make it, because this is a philosophical shift that I went through when I moved from left to right, or whatever the hell I am now. How did your mindset start to vary or change?
Here's the funny thing. I am a very, as I'm sure you are as well, like heterodox thinker, and definitely cannot be neatly bucketed. But if you were to answer a basic question of is left or right more associated with personal development and hard work and responsibility at its best, right? And it's like ideal archetypes, right? It's definitely the right.
Mhm.
It's almost like I had during that period when I was most identified with hardcore left, my health was deteriorating. I didn't
Yeah.
go to the gym as much. I'm sure I was like literally what I was doing, posting was like blaming people for the society's problems.
The victim mentality.
Totally. And then that just carries out into your whole life. And
Yeah.
so imagine you're dating someone who then your boyfriend is getting fatter, more irritable, and less fun.
Right.
That's like not a good combination.
Thinking he's superior to everybody else and letting a million people a day
Absolutely. I
know it.
mean, I was not good at taking feedback as well about how I was not super fun to be at parties anymore. and just like talking about politics whenever I could.
I've been that guy.
Yeah, hopefully you learn. But I think, long story short, what happened when I cut out that political stuff cold turkey was I worked on myself. I stopped. That was my first attempt to stop drinking. This was, did I? Okay, this wasn't when I stopped drinking. Okay, but it was the beginning of a real
But you recognized you had a problem that like
era
you needed to take steps in a different direction.
to improve my life in just many different ways.
Yeah.
So I started journaling. I started to run regularly.
Mhm.
I ran outside in the cold, like freezing cold, because I'm sure, have you heard of Wim Hof?
Oh yeah, my brother is really into Wim Hof.
Yeah, I just started to like think about like human potential and taking responsibility for my life, fasting, and just like a bunch of different things I started to just like implement into my life. And I just got in really a lot better shape. And I was like, okay, it's time for me to just start really thinking about what I want to do next in my life. And